Again, I went from being a person who just identified with having no family, just being like, I am a being of my own creation, to now being like, oh my God, thank God I have my family. Those are my homies, my OGs, my ride or dies. Those are my people for life. Like, thank God I have those family members. Blessings, magical beings. As always, it's such an honor to connect with you. Thank you for tuning in. Probably one of my most requested videos that I've ever gotten, actually, is healing with family. And to be honest, there are many things that I'm very credible and knowledgeable of. However, this is probably one of the most, because I have had one of the craziest family situations, family lives. I'm like up there with the people who are on TV about it, who have the crazy lives that you read about, that you hear about on TV. And funny enough, my childhood was so crazy, it has been on international television. Dr. Phil, Good Morning America. And yeah, that's kind of just been the theme for my life. So anyways, there's been a lot that's gone on in my family life, to the point where I feel like it is time for me to share very specific things as to how to heal with your family. Now, of course, I want to preface all of this by saying there's no one way to heal with your family, so I am going to be giving lots of different tips, tools for different situations, scenarios, different types of people. It's going to look different for each family member at different times. So with that, I'm meaning there's not even a certain way to respond and react to the same person for the same period of time. It's so important that you use your intuition and you feel into and are actually present with where that person is at, whether it is rightful, this victim mentality or this perpetrator, whatever mentality, savior mentality. Understand they too have their own experience, and they too are evolving through their own experience. So there's not one medicine or one way or one thing that just fits any one person even for their whole life. Does that make sense? It's going to change and transition. For example, there were periods of time with my mom where I went years without talking to her, having any contact with her. And if you've watched Dr. Phil, you know there was a period of time where I even thought she had committed suicide and thought she was dead for a matter of time. And even before that, I intentionally actually stopped talking to her. I'll save the specific details for a different video, but there were times where I was talking to her and where I wasn't talking to her, where it was safe to communicate with her, to interact with her, and there are other times where it wasn't safe. She wasn't in a state to receive that, or perhaps it would cause some trauma or experience, where there will be different things. There will be a no contact rule for some people at some points of their life and your life. And then there are also times to be more compassionate, more open-hearted. Perhaps they've done healing or they've done work, and it's time to now let them back in, to be more forgiving and to allow for their love to penetrate you once again, because it's safe. So there will be different things at different periods, different points in your life, and that is really just up to you. So understanding some of these points of time, a no contact rule is really good and healthy and healing for people who have been codependent and for narcissistic, any type of toxic dynamic, sometimes and often. Now this is probably one of the biggest things that helped to heal my family situations and dynamics. There's a period of time where no contact and a cutting of the cords is necessary. Now, when we cut cords, it doesn't always have to be that those cords are cut forever and we're severing them to never have a connection and to remove and clear any connection we ever had. It doesn't work like that. We can actually cut cords so that they can regenerate, become healthy again. Especially if they're toxic cords, we want to cut them so that we can create a healthier relationship, interaction within that space, and then we can connect those cords once again. Cords can often sound bad and people are like, I don't want any cords at all whatsoever. There are divine, healthy, cosmic cords that are eternal, that are through even our DNA, that are going to remain no matter what. But yes, having no contact for a period of time and cutting, severing any of that connection is necessary. And you can even do it in a way that is really loving and kind and compassionate. It doesn't have to be, never speak to me again. In fact, I highly suggest that you do not ever do this out of anger. Still just taking responsibility, even for your own self, to claim and to own that so that you can heal from that. And also with that, when you are loving and you just simply speak your truth, you communicate, hey, I feel super unsafe, or hey, I'm super triggered and I can't help but react to you, I apologize. Whatever it is, when yourself hears you say that, it is so healing, and it actually allows for you to heal from the inside. And of course, that experience is also very healing for the other person as well. So acknowledging and doing it in a kind, loving energy. And even if there is no explosion or a situation that causes this, you just now have a revelation like, this is toxic, this is not okay. You go through something in your life and you realize something needs to change, you can still do it in a kind and loving way, and even a communicative way. I personally do suggest being open and communicative as much as possible. I'm coming from a background of having extremely volatile, intense, somewhat very extremely hostile family members, dangerous family members. So personally, it's been helpful for me too, and I've tried both. I've done it where I'm as gangster as them, and it usually does not work out well. I've also done it in energy where I'm just communicative. I'm speaking my truth, but I'm being very loving. And I'm just like, hey, this is super toxic. Or I say something nice like, hey, I realize I need to take care of myself more. There's gonna be time and space between us. I love you. I always love you. I hope you can understand, honor, and respect this. Thank you. And just saying something clear like that. Sometimes when we tell people it's toxic or this is hurting me, or then it can send them in a different energy. Again, that may be what needs to happen, especially if you don't have that communication or clarity. My family really, really does. That's one thing, is they communicate a lot. They share a lot, they express a lot, they have no boundaries. They're very authentic in terms of expression. So that's not an issue for me. So it's actually more healing in my situation to say less, actually, and more to the point. But if you don't do that in your family, maybe that's necessary. Being communicative, hey, this is toxic. I realize this is creating this dynamic for me, and this is how I'm going to heal it. I'm going to create space, and it may be for this amount of time, or I have no idea how long it's gonna be. I'll let you know. And creating space. Severing those cords actually allows for, again, them to heal, and for you to come back in a new energy. So for me, this was what was necessary for my mom, was to completely cut her off and to create that distance. Now, it took many years, about 10 years, but she did fully come around to where now my mom, who was once my biggest enemy and my most feared person, essentially, if she hears this, Mom, I love you so much. I'm sorry, but I just have to, it was a reality, so I just have to share it for the video. But she's now one of my best friends. Truly, truly. Like, for me personally, it has not always been this way, where if you caught me like 5, 6, 7 years ago, I would literally say, I used to say, I don't have parents. I don't have parents. People would be like, who are your parents? And I'm like, my parents are aliens. My parents are the Arcturians. I come from a different planet. I don't have parents. Because it was so toxic for me at many points in my life, to where I had to literally disassociate from my family, from my parents, in order to find myself, in order to heal, in order for me to actually embody who and what I am. Now that I've done that, it actually created the dynamic where they did that too, and they've been able to come back, and we are so healed, so connected, so loving, to where, again, now I actually refer to my parents as my best friends. Literally. My parents, no joke, are the people, literally, I will call them instantly when something goes wrong. And especially if it's something that I am too embarrassed to tell anyone else, or it's something where it's like, I can't believe I did this, whether it's like with work or with friends or with a boyfriend, whatever it is, literally my first person people that I tell are now my mom and my dad. And that's not even in a way where it's like this child-parent dynamic. My parents are pretty much my best friends. They always have been. It's never been a situation where they really were like my parents. I have been my own parent since I was like 2, 3 years old, legitimately taking care of myself and everyone else since that age. So it's not even that. It's literally that. They're just the people who I know will accept me and love me no matter what. And also they're hilarious, and they make me feel confident too, so they support me as well. And I really do have the coolest relationship with them ever. And I say this again because that was not my situation. It was not my situation. It went from like my parents and my mom being like my abuser to literally they're my best friends. And I'm not just saying that for a video. I mean straight up like best friends. So that may be necessary, is taking space and time. So with my mom, it took years. She did her own work. Also creating that separation allowed for her to start to see herself. When I removed myself from being in front of her and receiving her, then she had to look at her own reflection. It was like a mirror. She then saw who she was, what she was, and she got to shift and change and transform. And again, that was really deep and very, 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 very serious. Not just like, oh, she had some like narcissistic traits or something. No. It was very, very serious to the point where she has now changed, transformed, and that time allowed for her to transform and change in ways thought unfathomable by everyone. I mean, literally, it's kind of a story where it's like my mom came back from the dead. It's like, you can't bring the dead back to life. No, you actually can. You actually can, because that was my reality where I thought my mom was not alive for a significant amount of time and lived that life and did my own healing, trusted it, communicated with her higher self while I was in that experience, and she came back to life. You know, given she never did actually pass away, but miracles can happen. They are happening. So with the family members that are more ego-based and have more of an intensity and more of an outward toxic trait and are more of the perpetrators, those are often the ones who it's necessary to cut ties with, to create space from, and to have a break from, to have a no contact rule with. Especially if it is a family member who has been in your life significantly, especially for your whole life. That is something that you need to have happen to create that space so you can even find yourself. This is even a part of evolution. And so if you haven't gotten time or space to do that properly, especially if it's been muddied with a lot of toxicity or trauma, then you need to have this space to flourish and expand in your own reflection beyond that toxicity. So do it with that energy. When you do it with a loving and compassionate energy, you feel more called to then honor your truth more. I promise you, I'm gonna say that again. When you do it with a loving and compassionate energy rather than out of angst or anger or in some intensity, then you feel more called to honor your truth. When you are kind and loving, then you have this internal knowing where you trust yourself more to actually speak your truth. And then when you speak your truth, you actually become more kind and loving because again, that trust, you trust yourself to speak your truth. So you are okay with being loving and kind and compassionate with it. And then you won't have any guilt or shame, especially if you were codependent. Your ego may try to convince you that you need this or you're doing something wrong. It is necessary with many to create that space. Now, there are also family members on the flip side who space may not necessarily be the answer for them right now in this situation. It may be continuing to show up, continuing to be loving regardless, showing up in a loving energy and not playing their games, not giving into these things that they want to complain about or gossip about or create some toxic energy about. Instead, it's being love and just being clear. So before those situations, before interacting with those people, it's important to solidify your own field, to solidify your energy, to be conscious, clear, and aware of your intentions, and to perhaps state to yourself, I am only in my own energy. I do not take on or absorb anyone else's energy. I am only within and around that which is of the highest frequency and vibration, and so it is. And then you emit this energy of healing with you. Perhaps the answer isn't, with a certain family member, to remove yourself. It's to stand even stronger in light. For one of my family members who has very recently been going through a rehab and intervention and addiction and relapse cycle, this family member has had to have many different forms of healing and response, where I have had to cut ties with this family member, and that was very helpful for a certain amount of time because they started to learn that their behavior was not okay and that they couldn't traumatize everyone and hurt everyone and be angry and mean to everyone and expect for them to keep coming back. And that shift happened. And while the huge shift didn't happen, they didn't just get better and they're healthy and healed like my mom did, where literally that was all that was required, was that unplug in order for her to actually heal. This family member is still in it. So I have created that disconnect of those toxic cords and created some space. And now I am showing up in love, where I am just being that reminder of light, of what is on the other side. So I'm not responding to any of the toxic things or text messages or calls or anything. I just do not do it. I do not interact. I'm just like, oh no, this is where I'm out. Nope. Oh no, I'm not. Nope, not this one. And the family member knows when they're getting into that now, because I'm like, nope, there it is. Absolutely not doing it. But regardless, I'm showing up as love, where I'm like, look at this song, or look at this video, or look at this, or remember when we used to do this, or how about this, or ooh, I think you'd be good at this. Showing up in love, and again, a reminder of light. So not playing any of the games with them, not going into any of those spaces, removing myself when necessary, but also balancing the reminder and the reflection of light. And this does take some extra work, some extra internal work, to be so solid and okay within that you don't get triggered and you don't respond and react to your family members. Personally, I do take it as a situation where I'm like, all right, this is not just a normal situation. This is something that I am wanting to change, transform, heal, and have be a better energy. So rather than going in it with a subconscious nervousness or an anxiety or an discomfort or interrupt of my system because I'm there, instead, I go into these situations with my family and communicate with them. I do communicate very regularly now with my family members, but when I was really in the midst of healing with them, I would solidify my field and make sure that I am fully taken care of, and know that I will hash out and express anything that needs to be expressed and hashed out afterwards, or perhaps with someone else afterwards, rather than within the situation. Because again, I do come from a very explosive family, and while it is really important to always speak your truth, I've gotten to master the ability to do so in a loving and kind way that still is being fully honest, authentic, and truthful with myself, from myself, but also being kind, compassionate, and essentially just aware of the dynamics at hand. Now, again, this is not always fair to people to have to walk on eggshells. Obviously, if that is the case and you're having to contort yourself too much to be in certain dynamics, that it's just necessary that you need space and time away from your family. But there is a way to express and to be well received by the other person who's receiving, where you're not just announcing your truth, you are communicating your truth. There's definitely a difference. Something else that was really helpful for me to heal with my family and to connect with them more was to acknowledge the traits that we share. Now, when my mom came back into my life, I personally felt like I was having a full-on awakening again, because I was able to receive her and experience her in a more conscious state personally, but she had also become a lot more conscious. So I was going through my own awakening, and being able to see her and receive her, experience her in this energy, this light, I saw so many things where I was like, oh my God, that's where I get that from. Oh my God, oh, that's why I am this way, is because you're that way and it made me be this way. Oh, that makes so much sense. There was so much good things and bad things where I was like, oh, I do that too. I don't like that. I don't like that. And also really good things where I was like, oh, that's why I'm always so happy, or I talk like this, or I'm this, or I'm so loving to people, or I think like this on the inside of my brain. And so it was really beautiful and a great way to heal and bond with my family, where I would share the things like, hey, you notice we have this trait? Or hey, how does this work for you? Or what does this feel like for you? It's a beautiful way to connect with your family. If you can do this with that family member, like, hey, notice we do this. Or hey, do you understand this? Or what is this? Or I love that we have this trait. And if you can't do it with that specific family member, then doing it on your own. Paying attention, like, okay, my family member does this and I absolutely hate it. How do I do that in my life too? Or what did that cause me to start doing in my life? And do I love it? Or do I not like that too? having this sort of understanding with the connections, the cords, the bonds that you share on a deep DNA and internal level, a soul level with your family. And if you want to continue curating a bond and a healing with your family, perhaps beyond the trauma, beyond the past, a beautiful way to do so is to play games with them, to do activities, to do fun things, and to see them in a childlike energy. So maybe that is going to the park, or going to the beach, or going on a hike, or playing a card game, playing charades. I actually played this with my family recently, and it was so much fun to see all of my family members in a completely different light. Because especially in charades, you're like trying really hard to express something, but you can't do it with your normal form of expression. So you express in different ways, and I got to see the different ways in which my family members communicate when they can't use their voice. And also the telepathy between all of us too. It also helped to strengthen that and to build that communication, where afterwards we were all just like so on point telepathic, understanding each other without having to say anything, where we just take care of each other, love each other, and nourish each other. And if it's not charades, maybe it's a card game, or maybe it is some different activity, a fun ball game, watching something together even, going to the gym. Things with my dad like that. That is my dad's favorite thing ever, is going to the gym with him. He's 66 years old and still a bodybuilder and an actor still to this day. And he goes to the gym every single day. It's rare. I rarely hear him. Maybe once every few months he's like, I skipped a day at the gym today. Every few months. He'll go to the gym for 3 hours a day. So that's really fun for me to do with him, and it always helps to build a relationship, because I love going to the gym, but even if I didn't love going to the gym, it would be something that he loves so much, and to see him in that energy of love and happiness is loving and happy for me. It makes me feel that way too. And it also allows me to connect with him in a different way, connect with his spirit, his heart in a different way when he's doing something he loves. So doing something that you both love, all your family members love, is really fun, and also even just something new and challenging, different. Maybe go to an amusement park together, or go play bumper cars, or do something where you can be competitive and also loving and have fun at the same time. Doing these kinds of activities will change your family dynamic. So even next time you're hanging out with your family, rather than just all hanging out at home, you don't have to go do something big and super out there and spend a lot of money. Instead, just play a card game or play charades. Do something that is different and can allow for you all to be in a different energy together. One of the biggest reasons why it's so common for people to have toxic relationships and dynamics with family members is because we often continue to see them through the same light our whole life, where there's some trauma or experience or challenge or a consistent issue or something triggering that happened with that family member or in that situation or when you lived with them or whatever it is, that we have been unable to see past. And we have created and continued to nurture these toxic cords, this toxic past perspective or experience of our family members, and haven't allowed for ourselves to see them and experience them in a new light. So know that if you have a family member who's been unable to be loving, kind, harmonious, or treat you right, or treat you like an adult, or like the person you are, or who you are now, it's because they have continued to see you and projected upon you this past light, this past version of you. So perhaps that answer is unplugging and taking time, space away, and communicating with our higher selves, sending love to that situation, and then allowing for it to come back when it is healed and to regenerate new cords. Or perhaps it is necessary to just have a new perspective and to do something new with them, something that allows for you to shift out of that old light, to see each other in a new light, a new energy, so that you can reflect who you truly are now. There is a healthier version of your relationship with every family member you have, every person that you know in your life, every relationship you have in your life right now. It may just be necessary for you to unplug so you can see them in that new light, and so they can see you in this new light, in this new perspective. Because on an internal level, in the heart, in the DNA, in your bones, in your blood, you are connected. And that connection is love. The base, the root, the foundation of your connection is love within. And you share that with everyone, so especially your family members. So I hope this helped, and I do plan to make more videos on this topic because it's something that's very present in my life and something that has really changed my life. Again, I went from being a person who just identified with having no family, just being like, I am a being of my own creation, to now being like, oh my God, thank God I have my family. Those are my homies, my OGs, my ride or dies. Those are my people for life. Like, thank God I have those family members. And that's a healing I didn't know was necessary. So I'm curious how your relationships are with your family members and what you want to create, cultivate with your family members, where you're at with them. Share in the comments below. Let's create a safe space. We are all soul family here, and I'm so grateful that you're all here. I'm sending you so much love, infinite blessings always, and so it is. Thank you for being here, soul fam.